Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have some visuals which I am very keen to show you. Did you get it? Okay. So somebody in my stage has so much to say, so much to share. So the chairman, please feel free to ring the bell, pull the wire out, whatever you like. Let me now show you. We have been working in the last 10 years, developing technologies for various applications, right from cleaning rivers to robotics for petroleum industry. Few more technologies I'll show you along the way. And we had that firm belief that the human intellect is very equitably distributed around the world, better than oil and minerals. So we have it in us to do so much. And here, today, I will touch upon the subject of sustainability, how we stopped a huge amount of plastics that would have otherwise ended up in the ocean. I think a lot of you must have received a video from a social media influencer about a magic boat that stopped plastics from going into the water. I'm just curious, how many of you must have received that video? It was very, very viral. Just a show of hands, did many of you receive that video? Yes. Okay. That was a video by a social media influencer about how a magic boat can be brought to India, a challenge to the Prime Minister in good, I mean, it was in a lighter vein. But the reality is like this, much before those things came, this solution, 2015 onwards, a passive barrier that does not require a drop of fuel, has no boat. It is simply a well-designed, hydrodynamically very well-designed barrier that is drawn across the river, and it brought all the trash and plastics to the river bank for removal. One of the first full year of operations in 2018, 22,000 tons of trash was removed, including 2,200 tons of plastics in 1 year. Not a drop of fuel was used. Now that is Indian technology. Okay. It's just a matter of small detail that it cost 1 upon 30 times this overseas technology. You can do 30 such installations for that one installation. And that's obviously the reason I don't have money for advertising and things like that. That's why many of you don't know me. But that's a fact. It is visible on Google Earth. These things are all on the Google Earth. It's there in the media. So this happens to be the most successful solution. And because of the hydrodynamics, this is also the strongest and the longest barriers, something that you can all feel good about. This was the report in the Hindu. After 1 full year of operations, you can see 21,600 tons of waste was removed from Kuam. It consisted of a lot of things, including 2,000, roughly 10% of that is plastics. If I had sold plastic credits, I'd be getting $1 million every year. So long as, of course, the plastics continue to come. Now, let's look at the journey of plastics. We are standing in a roadside shop, and by chance or somebody just out of carelessness, he throws the packet of maybe some bhujia or whatever, he throws it out. It is moving around with the wind, and one day a rain comes, it goes to the nearest drain, and from the drain starts a long unidimensional journey of this plastic packet. It goes into a bigger drain, a stream, a small river, and the river, and then finally it goes to the river mouth. After crossing the river mouth, it goes into a two-dimensional spread on the sea surface. It is, with today's technology, it is practically impossible to scalably lift plastics from the sea surface. I'll tell you the reason. And once it stays there with the wave action, after some time it breaks down and goes down the water column. I think we can't even now think about removing from the water column from the depth of the seas. It can be technically done, but the return of investment, the bang for bucks, the success for the amount invested will be very minuscule. It will be a thankless job. So that's what we are handing over to the next generation. So the smart thing would be to stop it while it is still in its unidimensional journey. And when it is, you're doing in a river, not a drop of fuel, that is a mantra. The flowing water brings to where you like to pick it up. You deploy the barrier where you like to pick it up. You do that where you have a good road connectivity. This 22,000 was removed because every few days, the vehicle used to go to the river bank. The JCB used to simply scoop up whatever is collected, turn around, put it in tipper trucks. 10 of them used to come, take it away, go to wherever the municipality is disposing. So that is the most cost-effective way of doing this, the lowest per ton model cost. Now it is in 9 cities across some 34 locations, and this is still remains the biggest success in the world, but quite unknown success. I want to compare the Netherlands technology, the ocean cleanup. These are the people, very highly advertised technology. I appreciate that they are trying to intervene in the river, in the seas, and clean it up. If you see on top, that is the boat that used to pick it up with conveyor onto the boat and then use other boats to send it to the river bank. Now, those boats consume fuel, those other boats. And this boat is supposed to be working on solar, but it is my firm belief that a boat has got a limited space like an aircraft. And solar is not very space efficient. So you cannot develop enough power. Forget about the night, I'm talking about the daytime. You cannot really develop any significant power because the sun-facing deck space is very limited. So they have also come around. You can see the bottom image, their last installation in Guatemala, their 9th installation, when they said, okay, let's see, okay, we don't need the boat anymore. Without that. And on the right you see is our installation. How it works, very simple. The red lines show that it hits the barrier, all converges to the corner, it reaches the river bank, and in the river bank, the land-based gear is easier to operate, cheaper to operate. This is it. And why this has been such big barriers and still very successful is because we reduce the drag forces. It's a simple design principle. Don't put a solid fabric in the water. You cannot stop the flow of water with solid fabric. Put a mesh over there, so let the water flow past. Only the solid waste will stop. The solid fabric is good for a different industry, oil spill response industry, where you cannot put a mesh. All the oil will flow past. But when you're talking about solid waste, you have to allow the water to flow past. That is the reason we could handle river currents and still get the job done. This is near the coast, near the river seashore in Chennai. You can see how it all collects over there, and from the corner it's accessible from the river bank. The JCB keeps picking it up, scooping it up, turning around, putting it on the tipper trucks. These are some more images. The Musi River in Hyderabad, this is installed in 10 locations. And daily about 10,000 kgs of trash, mixed trash comes out, which normally we do not get into the disposal part of it. We leave it to the urban local bodies to take care of that. They do that better. And our expertise is intervening in these waters and removing, getting it out at a low cost. These are some more of the Google Earth images. On top left is Tuticorin. Anything and everything that floats comes and stops, including dead cattle and occasional human bodies. This is what I was explaining, that the drag force is a very simple principle to understand that you have to allow the water to go past. You can't put a solid fabric in the river and then say that I'm going to stop the flow of water. You cannot do that. The ocean cleanup, the first foray into the seas, when they had gone, they had put a solid fabric. It did not work. And they came back, they said the barrier is broken, but they went back, they went with a mesh, with a net instead of a solid fabric. I'm sorry. this is a very interesting venture into the sea to sieve and remove plastics. They got the sieving right, but the propulsion, we still have a very long way to go. This is not scalable model because the world will not spare so many tugs, number one. This takes out a very small fraction, but okay, every small step helps. But the problem here is the world will not spare so many tugs, number one. Second thing, you can't burn so much of furnace oil to take out a couple of tons of plastics. So we are planning to step into the sea early next year. But when we do that, we will be using deep sea anchoring, some of the currents, wind, and probably wave energy also, so that this propulsion, because in the sea, the distances are large. Now, you do not, in the river, you have the current to take you. In the sea, normally, you will not have currents to take you. And the distances are large. Even if you cannot take it to an island in between because they can barely manage their own waste, it's another matter. You cannot go and get other waste to those islands. So the distances to deal with is large. I'd like to share with you, we have signed up an MOU with the government of Goa to do the entire coastline, of course, using CSR funds. And that will be the biggest project in the world once this is done. The CRZ clearances have almost come through. And we'll be doing the entire coastline of Goa. So, another piece of information is that we have signed an MOU with ISRO to develop artificial intelligence to improve the capabilities to detect and assess solid waste and plastics and oil in the coastal waters. ISRO has got a lot of remote sensing images, and they have the algorithm to see what is plastic, what is not, but unless you validate it from the ground, that algorithm will not go far. So we have the maximum training data on the ground with all our installations. So we are able to validate, we are able to take those remote sensing images and say, yes, this is in fact plastics and this is a false positive, whatever the training data does, so that the model will be very robust. Now, when we talk of cleaning rivers, one problem that exists, of course, surface trash is removed. You also have the bottom silt that's continuously moving. That is actually a major cost factor for every port. It makes the life of a dam reservoir finite. It complicates the flow in a canal, municipal drainages. When I go to the urban local bodies, the engineers tell me all the time, can you find a solution? So we did a solution. The idea is, in principle, is a very simple one-liner, that this silt always seeks the bottom. And when you put a silt trap, the silt goes into that, and the way we have designed it is such that it will not come back up again, even if you have turbulent waters, and it is removed from the other side using Archimedean screws and certain conveyors. Unlike grease and oil, this is abrasive. You require a lot of power to move it over a small distance, but otherwise you're collecting it at a place where you like. It's a passive collection, not a drop of fuel for collection, and removal to the surface requires a little bit of energy, but that will be probably the lowest per ton cost of removing silt. And it can help to maintain the depth of a port. It can help maintain the canal depths and bring down the cost drastically. This is a model of ocean wave energy harvester that we tested at an indoor wave pool. Those drums that you see, they are connected to chains, and the chains are connected to cranking arms. Essentially, ocean wave energy, the world over, they're all in pilot stage, nothing is in commercial stage. They do only two types of conversion from this non-harmonic wave to a useful form. Some of them rotate a shaft, some of them pump fluid. If you rotate a shaft, that is useful form of energy. After that, you're able to bring it up to the RPM, reduce the torque, whatever, and convert that to electrical power. The other option is to pump fluid. If you pump fluid, then also it becomes useful form of energy. In this case, we rotated a shaft at 5 RPM with a very good torque. And we proved that you are able to create useful form of energy. Of course, there is a lot of issues surrounding that. Your consumer should not be depending on this is seasonal, all those factors are done, but this is one of the working models of wave energy harvesting. And we plan to use a completely floating model. There's a seabed unit over there which you can't see clearly. That is what is using this motion of the drums to rotate the shaft. Then we went on to design a completely floating model so that you don't keep anything on the seabed, you don't need floating cranes, you don't need to find a flat seabed. And you can move it around on anchor it here or anchor it there, maybe even a fishing boat can tow it and anchor. We plan to use this for our coastal plastic cleanup, these models. What you see on the side of that is we did some simple experiments for dual axis tracking for solar panels, floating solar. For whatever reason, floating solar does not have tracking, which I'm surprised. It should not be too difficult. So we have gone ahead and we have designed something that can track the sun in two directions, east, west, north, south, and probably increase the yield. And that time we said, okay, how often do we have to continuously, like a sunflower farm, keep looking at the sun, or we can go every 10 degree or 30 degree. So the right side, that experiment to see how does the yield fall as the sun's rays goes away from the normal of the panel. And we found that up to about 15 degree, the yield did not change much. So we said, okay, so long as we keep the sun's rays within 10 degrees of the normal, the yield should be good. So rest of the time, you're de-energizing those servo motors, and you're not really spending too much of energy and keep moving it or holding it in place. We developed robots to clean crude oil tanks, eliminate man entry. Going inside petroleum tank is hazardous. You have lack of oxygen, hydrogen sulfide, hydrocarbons, all of that. I myself in '93, I remember I was inside a tank with I was a merchant navy captain, oil tanker captain earlier, and I was inside the tank with my team to check the tank, and somewhere there I decided, look, this is no way when the world is flying rockets, you're not going to be cleaning the sludge this manner. One day I'll make a robot if nobody makes it. 30 years later, Oil India Limited said, okay, if we can make it, here is the funds. And we made this robot, and the certification to the highest explosive zone, that is practically completed. We should be getting this and going into the refineries. About 5 companies in the world have made this. 4 of them have not put a pump on it. We have put a pump. The difference is you cannot use suction, very long suction pipes. It is like trying to eat an ice cream with a very long straw. It doesn't move. For suction, it is between 1 atmosphere and vacuum. Both are decided by nature, and you can do nothing about it. Whereas the discharge side of a pump, it's technology. You can make 100 bar pressure, 200 bar pressure, whatever you like. So we have been asked by the urban local bodies, can you help us make robots for cleaning under the culverts? Their Hitachis don't go under the culverts. So they have a bottleneck in the drainage system. So it's very easy for us to adapt to that because it doesn't require this explosion protection and those kind of things. We are doing that. Yes, we filed about 13 patents, couple of them awarded, and we got some awards. Yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of the talk, and with the chair's permission, whenever you ask doubts, if there's any, I'll reply. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a small query. What is the viscosity of the water from which you remove this? Because as per this thing, your explanation, I find that you are handling in very large volumes of water, whereas most of the muck appears where the river meets the sea, or the drainage meets the river. So if the system is efficient, why not to install right at the root instead of going to the sea and doing 10 times more labor than what could be done on a smaller area?
You're saying about the solid waste on the surface, or the?
No, sorry. I'm talking of the water containing everything.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very easily understandable question and the answer. When you come to the river, you're putting one installation, aggregating everything and taking out in one place. If you go upstream further, then you can go put many smaller units and do that. In fact, I believe we should evolve to put smaller units going upstream, because the river in the city will look clean, the town will look clean. And as a first step, I said, okay, if you're not ready to put so many of the smaller units, put one big unit where the entire thing enters the river, so that you at least get it out before it goes into the ocean. That is the answer for that.
That means you are installing it at the mouth of the river where it meets the ocean.
No, in fact, we deploy it in where the downstream of the city, like Chennai city, downstream of that, or Hyderabad, through the city, so that what happens, the generation is happening maximum, all this trash is in the city. After it crosses the city, there's not much generation when these things go through the fields and open barren land. So in the downstream of the city, once you remove it, after that water will be clean for a long time. Of course, the silt keeps going. Silt is a different issue, but the solid waste on the surface is all generated by men, by people, I mean the humankind, and once it goes into the passes the fields and all that, there's hardly any generation.